What's going on, guys? It's Punjabi Marciano right here. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about the Gassiev versus Peter Kadiru fight. I forget how to pronounce this guy's name. My apologies, but yeah, it was a good performance by Gassiev. I liked how he worked behind his jab. I like the hooks to the body, to the head. I like how he sets things up. He was fighting a guy, I don't think he was world class. This fight was for the WBA heavyweight championship belt that Usyk vacated. Guy wasn't elite. He's not like a top 10 heavyweight, this guy that he fought. I don't believe I heard of him before. But, yeah, he lost pretty much every round, Gassiev, like I said, he was working nice behind the jab. He's got some nice hooks to the body and to the head. I've been a fan of Gassiev for a long time. I remember when he was back at cruiserweight during when Usyk and all them were fighting for in that Muhammad Ali tournament, I think. I was a big fan of him. I remember out of all those guys too, he was like the youngest of them out of like Usyk and Dorticos and all those guys at cruiserweight at the time. I remember he was like the youngest one. He was trained by, I think, Abel Sanchez, I believe his name was, Triple G's old trainer. And yeah, I was a big fan of him. I remember he fought Dorticos, which I believe was for like the unified cruiserweight champion. It was like the semifinal. I believe it was the semifinal before the undisputed fight when he fought Usyk. But yeah, he looked really good against Dorticos. I remember Dorticos was like this monstrous, like Deontay Wilder type like puncher. He like fought behind a jab and he had this big like right hand. He knocked someone out in like one of the prelims in the tournament, and the dude's eyes like rolled to the back of his head. Dorticos, he was a master, like a monster puncher. I thought he was gonna beat up Gassiev, and Gassiev like took his right hand away, like grinded him out. I haven't seen the fight since it happened, but yeah, I remember that was like a really good performance by Gassiev at the time. I was impressed with him. He also had a good win against Manuel Char back in the day when he was still fighting at cruiserweight. I remember, I think he had like a one-off, knocked out Manuel Char in like 3-4 rounds. That was a good performance too. But then he fought Usyk, and Usyk pretty much outboxed him, like cleanly, won like every second, like every round. I think he might have hurt him like once in the fight, but he never really. He might not have. I haven't seen that fight since it happened, but I remember Usyk pretty much won every round. Maybe Gassiev had like a moment here and there, but he got outboxed pretty clean. And after that fight, I remember Gassiev, he was pretty inactive after that fight. He fought like once a year, especially around that time COVID happened too. A lot of people were saying around that time too that even though he lost to Usyk, I remember like Richard Dwyer and some other people were saying that this guy was gonna maybe move up to heavyweight and get some big wins because he was really skilled. He was like in his like mid to late 20s, I think, when he lost to Usyk. He was really young, so people thought he was gonna have a good career after that. And yeah, he was inactive. I remember he fought some guys when he eventually moved up to heavyweight after the Usyk fight. He was fighting like once a year, and then he got outboxed by Otto Wallin. And I think Otto Wallin, he's decent. He gave Tyson Fury that good fight. He beat Otto Wallin. He has a win over Gassiev, who was a unified cruiserweight champion at the time. They talk bad about Gassiev because of the Wallin loss, but I think that shows more how good Otto Wallin is. I'm not saying Otto Wallin's like a really, really like top 10 fighter. Otto Wallin is a decent fighter. He gave Tyson Fury a good fight, and he beat Gassiev, who was a unified cruiserweight champion. So I think that shows more how good Otto Wallin is than how bad Gassiev was. But nevertheless, he didn't look good in that fight. And then a lot of people wrote him off, but then he had a pretty good win against Kubrat Pulev. Knocked him out. And then he was able to put himself in position for the heavyweight belt. And then Usyk vacated the belts, and then they elevated him to heavyweight champion. So, good on him for putting himself in a position like that. I saw Derek Chisora get in the ring after that. I thought he was retired. They faced off, so that might be a fight that happens. Gassiev, he's still young, but he looks a lot older than he looks. I believe he's in his early to mid 30s, but he looks like he's like in his 40s. I don't know what's going on there. I mean, it doesn't mean anything as long as you can fight, right? But I don't know, man. Like Gassiev, he, of course, like a lot of people say, out of everybody, all the belt holders right now at heavyweight, he's probably the weakest, and I say so too. But you know, he's got power. You know, he works behind that jab. He has good pressure, but you know, Derek Chisora is a veteran. I can see him maybe beating Gassiev, you know, if he got his tactics right. But I think Gassiev might be a little too sharp. I think he probably might even stop Chisora. But you know, Chisora, man, he pulls out a lot of these decisions, you know, when people write him off, even at this age. You know, if he came in against Wilder at, you know, in a little better shape, he might have even got that decision, you know. So you can't write Chisora off if he fights Gassiev. He's a beast. And then, you know, the other belt holders out there, there's Daniel Dubois. I think Daniel Dubois is too big for Gassiev. He works behind that jab. You know, he's got a better jab than Gassiev has. He's like, he can rock your whole head back with that jab. I think Dubois probably has the best jab at heavyweight. And I think just with his size and all that, he'd grind Gassiev. I'll probably take him out early. But, you know, like I said, Gassiev has that left hook and that pressure, so maybe he can land something against Dubois. We've seen some vulnerability there with Dubois, but Dubois would probably piece him up. That's a good fight. And then there's Edgy Cabello. That's the fight I really want to see. You know, I think that's a good style matchup. I think that fight's more competitive than the Dubois fight. But I think Cabello, he's more of a natural heavyweight. I think he's got faster hands, you know. Gassiev, he doesn't have good head movement either, and like good defense, and he got pieced up a couple times in this fight. So I think someone elite like Cabello would probably outwork him. Maybe win like a late stoppage, probably by decision, maybe. But I pick Cabello by like late stoppage in that fight. But like I said, you know, Gassiev, he's got that left hook. We saw that in the pull-up fight. So you know, Gassiev, he has a chance with his power. And he's got good pedigree, you know. We saw a cruiserweight. He's not a bad fighter, you know. So yeah, who else is champion right now? Dubois, Cabello, Gassiev, and who else is champion? Dubois, Gassiev. But it was a good performance by Gassiev, you know. And out of all the champions right now, I think Cabello would be a good fight for Gassiev next. I don't really want to see the Chisora fight. I know that's a big name for Gassiev. He probably make a lot of money in that fight, but that's not really a fight I want to see. That's not really relevant. He's a heavyweight belt holder right now, so I want to see him in with another champion, you know, or at least someone in like the top 5, top 10, top 5, really, you know. So Gassiev, not a bad fighter, you know, solid dude. You know, let's see what else he could do. Yeah, you know, let me know what you guys think of his performance. Like and subscribe if you guys can. Punjabi Marciano, and I'm out.